I'm a little bit still recovering post cold, so I'll see how it goes. But if I have to finish early, please forgive me. I think, unless I misremember, we have a little bit of mopping up to do from the last sugya, just about a goshush. Did we speak about goshush? Did we discuss that just before the two dots? Sorry? Does anyone remember there was such a sugya? Yeah, good, okay. Do we speak about that? Or what did I say about it, Adam? Do you remember?
We spoke about that kiss on kiss.
Chesron kiss is worse than a regular Muktza. Oh, fine. Okay, good. Okay, I was kicking myself again on that. Fine. Good. Okay, so we finished up to the two dots. Excellent. Zemoya shehi kashura v'chula. Kashura in loy kashura loy. So you have a, from what I can work out of the Metzius, you have a bucket which is used to draw up water, and the Zemora is a vine branch which is used, as far as I can tell, as the rope that pulls the bucket up. I don't think we realise how lucky we are to live in a world where ropes and strings are easily accessible, and the Zemora was used as the rope. So the Mishnah says that if it's tied or attached to the bucket, then it's not Muktza, it's part of the Keli. But if it's not tied, then it's Muktza. In some way paralleling the previous part of the Mishnah, which said that similar thing with the HaEven SheBeKiruya, the HaEven which is used as a weight. The only thing that left me a little puzzled. So Rashi explains, by the way, that even when the Zemora is not kashura, even when it's not tied to the bucket, nonetheless, it's still functional because it has a hook at the end which you can attach the bucket to. But since it's not kashura, it's not. So the point of the Mishnah isn't that when it's not kashura, it's not functional, because then obviously it's Muktza. The point is it is functional, but you haven't specified it for its new melacha. And the Gemara is medamer it to choriyos, which you cut up for firewood, and now you want to make them in the yeshiva, you need a kashira. So fine, that's parallel to the previous sugya, right? The same concept, that yichud, your intentionality to use it as a rope for a bucket is not enough. You have to have actually attached it in order to make it part of the kli. The problem is it's not exactly comparable to the last sugya, because the Gemara doesn't get into a parallel discussion of Amr Rabbi Ami, Amr Rabbi Yochanan, or Amr Ravasi, Amr Rabbi Yochanan. So the Mishnah sort of puts them together. They're both examples of needing a physical, a tangible action of fixing it as part of the keli in order to make it a part of the keli as a part of the bucket and not Muktza. But the Gemara goes in a different direction and begins comparing it to, where does Rabbi Shimon Gamliel of Choriyos come in when we've just had a whole sugya? What's the difference between the two parallel sugyas? In the previous sugya, the Gemara compared it to Rav Ami and Ravasi, and in our sugya it compares it to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. But they're both the same concept, which is when you attach something to a bucket. In one case, you attach a stone as a weight in the bucket, and in another case, you attach a rope as a rope for the bucket. And the Gemara makes different comparisons. Yeah, Rafi.
Why can you say that maybe this case is no basis in this situation? So we don't want to say the Rabbani and Rabbizobin basis connection. So let's get this connection just to remove the shemek.
You're correct. Rav Ami and Ravasi are two things. They have a debate around basis, but they also have a debate around Muktza and how much of an action you have to do. And then the Gemara gives the whole the story of this Maisa with Hodech Paterach and so on. Are any of these things nogea to Velomtum? It's a whole different sugya.
Here's also the word. Two good functions.
Okay, so the answer has to be that not all cases are identical. And you can't just compare cases to cases. Some scenarios are more omeid for shtamshus, and some scenarios are less omeid for shtamshus. But I don't really know what I'm talking about. In other words, the answer is that I don't know what you mean when there's not some rule that all wood cases are comparison. You're correct. The previous Gemara is avonim, stones. Our Gemara is wood, but why is that relevant? Like the material is relevant over here, and then it compares it to the story of Tzuva Limdum is wood again. So well, it depends on what the scenario is, whether it's the soya shalkoras or. So the only answer, or nadvach shalavanim, the answer is evidently the answer is that not all cases are comparable, and you can't just scattergun compare an HaEven SheBeKiruya to HaEven shal piachovis to chorios shal to chorios to zamora. But what is comparable and what isn't comparable? I don't really know. So the maths of the answer is that a zamora is more made to be used as a rope for a bucket than and more similar to chorios for yeshiva than HaEven on a chavis. I don't know more than that. Maybe because an HaEven is just a stone and you have stones all over the places, whereas at least back in the day, zamoras of vines were obviously only made to be ropes. No one would waste a zamora of a vine. Obviously, you would use it as a rope, and therefore it's more only made for that shtamshus. It's not. We kept on saying when we were learning the sugya of HaEven, it's just a stone. There's nothing to it. You know, there's so many stones in the in the garden. There's nothing miyuchad about the stone. It seems the zamora of gefonim is more made for use. I don't know.
It's also interesting that it's HaEven SheBeKiruya.
Yeah.
The ones Kiruya, which isn't
Right. Right.
We've gone. Doesn't mean HaEven SheBeTafiyah would be different.
Yeah.
Would
I don't know if that's of halachic. I don't know. I don't know if it's of halachic significance, that distinction. It's true that the Kiruya started off life as a gourd or a marrow or whatever it is, but it ends up as a bucket. You've dedicated to the bucket. No one suggests the Kiruya is Muktza. The Kiruya has become a keli to bucket. I don't know. Maybe because the Kiruya floats. Maybe because a regular bucket doesn't have this problem of floating. Maybe a regular bucket is heavier, and a marrow skin is a gourd skin is lighter. I don't know. So it's very hard to know.
I'm not quite sure about the halachic implications of it, but when I first looked at the first case of HaEven SheBeKiruya, we assumed that there was a rope attached to the Kiruya.
Yes.
But actually looking back at it, I'm not sure that there was.
Excuse me. The rope there was
The rope was attaching the HaEven to the back to the
correct.
But there's nothing which actually said there was an extension that it's clear that you're not picking it up directly, you're picking it up.
I see, yeah. Right.
Which in the first case, it's not clear
Right.
to work
So maybe you're just scooping water out like that. And the floating is a problem because it makes it harder to handle when it floats, even though you're directly handling it. Yeah. Yeah. But again, I don't think that makes any. I mean, it's good for learning Pshat in the Mishna, but I don't know if it makes any enough commitment either. I don't know. Yeah.
The case of one it's someone is almost not Kalakilad, it's the
Tiltum in our Tad. It's true, and that was Rafi's point. 1 minute, the earlier sugya is a sugya bosses, our sugya is not a sugya bosses. But I don't think that's entirely correct. It's correct that there's an issue of bosses over there in that sugya. But besides the issue of bosses, is a question of to what degree has the HaEven become part of the bucket and ceased to be there for Muktza entirely, right? Once it becomes part of the bucket, then Muktza ceases to be relevant. It's now just part of the functionality of the bucket. So in that aspect of the sugya, I'm bothered by the lack of symmetry between the two sugyas. And the answer is don't expect symmetry in life. They're different cases and therefore they behave differently. What can you see in the sugya? You can see that a zamora is more omade for rope use than an HaEven is omade for weight. And that's intuitive, I guess. A stone is just a stone, whereas the zamora is apparently, it's not just a twig, it's a useful, in those days, they wouldn't waste zamoras. Zamora is more omade for rope type use there. I'm just saying the maths of the sugya, I don't really much more to say. Okay, Mechuberes, the Gemara then asked a separate question, just this, I'm just, again, just a pshat point. I got myself into a bit of a tangle over this. The Gemara says, where it's still mechuber to the original vine, to its parent. Ask the Gemara, and the Gemara answers, Lamata Megimel, we're talking about where it's Lamata Megimel. So what's the issue of being mishtamish b'mechuber l'karka? So I was lazy initially, and didn't look up the parallel sugyas and thought it was a Muktza din, but it's not a Muktza din. It's a if you look up in HaEven and in Beitza Daf HaEven Lamed Beis, and in the Mishnah Beitza, in the fifth paragraph Beitza of the Mishnah, it's unique shavus that you shouldn't climb ein olim be'ilan. The Mishnah says you're not allowed to climb a tree because of a shavus, a specific drabanon, that you might come to break a branch. And Rashi, maybe this is obvious, I don't know, because I don't know the sukkah that well, but Rashi understands that this is not just climbing a tree, but this is a shavus of any hishtamshus with a tree. So there's an issa of any hishtamshus with a tree, because you might come to break off a branch. And the Gemara says that the issa of ein olin doesn't apply to matam gimel, and therefore huadin you can be mishtamish in matam gimel. And therefore the Gemara's question over here is not really because of a muktza din, but because of an issa hishtamshus of shavus. That's the pshat in the sugya. I don't know if anyone else looked at the parallel sugyas, but that's what comes out. So the reason when the Gemara says ein mishtamshim per mechuba, it's not some new rule that mechuba is muktzah. It's a special shavus that you're not allowed to ein olim be'ilan, and therefore huadin ein mishtamshim be'ilan. Sorry.
Vine as well.
Yeah. It seems that they made a gezerah shavus drabanon, and a vine is a mechuba. It's a tree. It's true. It's not the sort of tree you normally climb because it's what's it called? Like an ivy climbing, but nonetheless, yeah. By the way, the logic of Lamata Megimel also, one of the reasons I got myself confused here is Lamata Megimel doesn't. Why should Lamata Megimel be better than Lamala Megimel? In climbing, you hear, but in Ishtamshus, there doesn't seem to be a difference between Lamata Megimel and Lamala Megimel, right? If the whole issue is ein olin, so okay, Lamata Megimel, that's Aras Michta, as Rashi says, it's just off the ground. So there's no issue of ein olin. Lo Yeshiva-style, yeah. So, but why here we're not talking about olin or yeshiva or anything. We're talking about using it as a rope. So why should there be a difference between Lamala Megimel and Matam Megimel? Seems that's how they made the shvus. Lamala Megimel or Gimel or Lamala more accurately. You can't be mishtamish. And Matam Megimel you can be mishtamish. They didn't make this zera. So.
Yeah, but because you didn't intend to use it, it was less than the.
No, you're using it here. You're using the rope.
You wouldn't sit on them if they were 3 or less. They won't use it.
No, you shouldn't sit on them. You must not sit on it because you're not allowed to shtamshus. Yeah. So the din is so just to summarize, the Mishnah Beitza, fifth paragraph Beitza says that ein olim be'ilan, you're not allowed to climb a tree. A new shavus because you might break a branch. The Rashi and probably the Gemara is probably pashut. We understand that's any shtamshus is asa. Nonetheless, since the shvus was only made, for Lamala Megimel or Gimel or Lamala, Gimel and above. But anything else Lamata Megimel, they didn't make the shvus. What's the logic of making a difference between Lamata Megimel and Gimel? Because Lamata Megimel is Aras Michta, it's just an extension of the ground. Why should that make a difference? I thought because when you're climbing, you're not going to. It's not called climbing when it's 3. But you see that the same chiluk applies to any shtamshus, not just to climbing. Maybe because that's just how they made the gzera. I'm not entirely sure. Okay.
Should it be like lovud? That it's really the ground you're sitting on.
It is a lovud type svara, yeah. It's not coincidence that the shear is the Matam Gimel. Aras Michta does mean it's just an extension of the grounds, and that definitely is a lovud type lomdas. It's just interesting that Chazal created that takana in line with the lomdas. Lovud is a lomdish thing, right? It's a conceptual idea. The gezerah of shavus, of not climbing a tree, is a practical thing that you might come to break a branch. Nonetheless, they had to draw a line somewhere, and therefore they chose Gimel as the line, because that's called Aras Michta. It's not called being off the ground yet. Because of Lovud, yeah. I agree, or something akin, analogous to Lovud, yeah. Lovud type, sorry. Anyway, that's what we had. Okay, Pekat Tachalon, here we get into a new sugya, really, the sugya of Oyel Arai. So this is even though this is a little bit off subject, I do want us to spend a little bit of time on this because it's very, very, very okay. Halacha Maisa. There's a whole family of Oyel Shilas that come up. We just did Simchas Torah where we had our chuppah held up by people. That's an Oyel. We move our mechitzas around in shul. That's just making mechitzas. I don't know, kids that want to play, are they allowed to stretch a sheet between two chairs to make themselves a little hut? Is that a problem? Putting up schach, if the schach falls on Yom Tov and Shabbos, can you do it yourself? Can you put it up? Can you do Amir Akum to tell a non-Jewish person to put it up? So a whole array of shadows. There's a massive, very very nogay halacha l'maisa, all these shadows about oil. So I want to just to focus on this. Did people manage to have a look at Tosus a bit, begin to work their way through Tosus and so on? Okay, so I'll just try and be masakim then what comes out in the sugya. So Rashi, so the Gemara says that that the pekat kachaloin, if it's attached to the wall, then it's just a window. It's like opening and closing a door. That's not a melachot on Shabbos, because it's only just to be opened and closed. If it's detached, then you're making a new, blocking up a hole in the wall on Shabbos is some level of binyan, is possibly some type of boina. So the Gemara compares it to the memra of Rabbi Baba Chana Rabbi Yochanan, that you can't make an oil arai from nothing on Yom Tov, or Shabbos, but you can add. But there's a machlokas about adding to an oil arai, whether you're allowed to add to an oil arai. So the Gemara seems to be comparing that the bakak is an oil arai, and you've got a wall, but you have a hole in the wall, and you're blocking up the hole with a bakak, and that's Mosifin on an oil arai, and that would be caught up on the machlokas Rabbi Lezer and the Chachamim. That's the simplest reading of the Gemara. Rashi says that's how I think we read the Gemara before we looked at Rashi. Rashi says that's not correct. Rashi. So first of all, what's the issa of oil arai? So it's an issa drabanon. It's not an issa d'oraisa. Why? Because it's oil arai, and we already saw in other melachos that you need a degree of kvias to make something a melachah min Torah. And Chazal, who asad oil arai, also gave a kula that if it's only a tosefes of an oil, not an oil mitchila, then it's mutter. That's how you read the sugya. Rashi says that this drabanon of oil arai is only when it is an oil, when it is a roof. But when it's a mechitza, even though building a mechitza is also b'chlal melachas boineh, nonetheless, that's not included in the drabanon of oil arai. So what's the comparison of our sugya? How can the sugya compare the two? If based on Rashi's point that a mechitza doesn't have the din of oil arai and only an oil has the din of oil arai, what's the comparison between the two? So Rashi, as we have the Girsa in front of us, answers the question that here there's a different gezerah, which is that you're adding something arai to a binyan keva, and that's the issa. And all the Gemara is saying is it's comparing the two ideas, that in the same way as Rabbi Elazar and Chachamim argue in accordance to Rabbi Baba Chanan, Rabbi Yochanan, in an oil arai, which means a literal oil, a roof, an arai roof, and they argue, and the Chachamim hold there's a chiluk between mitchila and mosifin. Similarly, with this separate drabanon of mechitza, where the din of oil arai does not apply, but here it does apply because it's a addition to a binyan keva. There you would have a parallel machlokas, and the Gemara is making a conceptual comparison. Does this fit how everyone understood Rashi? No, Jeffrey. Does this fit how anyone understood Rashi?
I thought so. I mean, I thought there was you could argue both ways. I was debating what is the more strict thing to do. What's the more malach? If you're comparing the ohel arai to the, on the one hand, you can say ohel arai is more strict because you're being oseh. You're making it from sort of
more strict than what?
The pakak.
Okay, but what's Rashi say? Rashi seems to say they're comparable. Yeah, neither more strict nor less strict.
Why you sort of need both cases?
Okay. I hear, but before you're already on stage 2. I'm not even up to stage 2 here. I'm just saying the maths of Rashi is he saying the two are comparable, right? That's.
I thought there was almost not comparable. There was the Mishna was talking about binyan keva, and according to Rashi, the Gemara was talking about binyan arai, and the only connection between the two of them is that actually this isn't really binyan or most of binyan at all. It's massive. It's one stage removed, So one was Masechet Shabbat in Arai, one was Masechet Shabbat in Keva.
I agree with the first half of you said, but not the concluding part. So Rashi, you're right. Rashi says it's mechse because it's a binyan keva. So the gezerah of oyhel arai is only a roof, not a mechitza, according to Rashi. Our case is completely different. It's not an oyhel, it's a mechitza. However, it's a temporary addition to a permanent building, and therefore that's mechse kabona. So it's a different drabanon. Nonetheless, the Gemara thinks the two drabanons are comparable. As in the debate as to whether mitzchila or tosefes would be mutter or asa.
Why does Rashi say Masechet most combination as well?
Rashi, because it's accurate. That's true. That's the issa. The issa is that is mechsi k'mosif. Now the question.
Masechet is Mosif?
No, it's mechsi k'mosif. It's only mechsi k'mosif. Why? Because the pekak is temporary. It's not permanent. So it's not a real Mosif. I probably created confusion with how I said it. It's not even alright. You're right. It's nothing. It's just taking a pekak in and out. But it's sorry. I should have spoken more accurately. I was messing my terminology. So let me correct it. There's an issa drabanon of binyan arai with an oyel, but not with a mechitza. Here we're talking about a completely different issa drabanon. An issa drabanon of mechsi k'mosif, because the building is clever, but the pekak is just in and out. The question is it mechsi k'mosif or not? But the Gemara seems to say that there's a comparison between the machlokes Rabbi and the Rabbanon in that case, whether mitzchila versus mosif. That's what Rashi seems to be saying in our Gesa. Adam, you're agreeing with me in that reason, yeah? You're debating which one. Stay true, which one would be worse and so on. But the core comparison, is that how you're learning Rashi? I'm genuinely asking because I'm not 100% sure I've got this right, but I think so. Yeah.
Why is Rashi go out of his way to say that this is not? There's no problem with
it's his relevance to the sugya because first of all, Rashi holds it's true. Rashi holds that the ein mosifin Rabbi Lezer Rabbanon is only with a gag, not with a mechitza. Why does it hold it's true? We'll see later. But Rashi already tells us because he says, so Rashi thinks there's a Gemara, which makes it clear. So now Rashi has a problem, because the pekak is a mechitza, not a gag, and therefore he has to answer that there's a different Rabbanon and Mechsi, and that's the comparison. So our gears of Rashi is not imagining it like that, because it's a mechitza. I don't know if you know which Gemara you're using, but in the new print, it brings from the Marshal, who says that it has a completely different version of Rashi. Rashi's point is the opposite. Rashi says, even though the Gezerah is only with a gag, not with a mechitza, here we're talking about a skylight. That's Rashi's. That's the alternative Rashi.
Is it essential that we say that the Gemara and the Mishna are trying to make the same point? It could have just been that the Mishna Masechet Shabbat. It's another Masechet Shabbat. Kind of similar topic, but it's different, and it's just brought there to the because the Gemara doesn't say, this Mishna is.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. Why is the Gemara bringing a completely separate machlokes Rabbi Lezer and the Chachamim?
Sometimes it's sort of like stream of consciousness. We discussed A reminds us of the. So we'll just bring another machlokes Rabbi Lezer and the Chachamim because
here though, it's difficult to understand that in our Gemara because sometimes the Gemara will link two arguments and then it'll go to other. But here it's just bringing a completely different machlokas. I mean, other than it being a machlokas about hilchas boina, hilchas oyel, there's no comparison between the two. They're two completely separate svaras. The answer is the Gemara does mean to say it's the same machlokas, and very interesting that it's the same. I don't know. I am hesitating a bit here. I'm genuinely asking to see how people are because I'm a bit uncomfortable with all of this. But that seems to be how Rashi's learning in our case, sir.
The last 5 words in the second Rashi hosted Dumya the pocket, the most of the armor. That will be emphasizing. Second the Macha Pushta, Dumya the pocket, the most of the armor. Is that the key?
Yes, those are the key words. Yes, those are the words I'm coming from. Yes, yeah. Now you're right, Adam. There's a stage 2, which is why do we need both cases in Muslim. But you're with me in when we I think we're reading Rashi the same way. Yeah. Those 100%. Yes. Rafi.
Daniel, also could fit in well, but maybe it could be the Shiur, the brilliant chaburah who could be going on the HaEven. That itself, that entity is considered brilliant chaburah, and that's been added on to something else which is existing, but it's not a permanent fit add-on, but the actual block itself is a brilliant chaburah.
When you say the actual block, you mean the pakak?
Yeah.
I hear that there is a problem with pronouns, what the who is, but I don't know what that means. The pakak is not a binyan kavua. It's taken in and out. It's the opposite of kavua. It's maybe even less than arai. It's like a door, opening and closing a door.
Because it's a solid like machitza. Like if you say a machitza, you can't make a machitza.
Yeah.
Then that itself could be a kavua.
But I don't think solidity is the criteria of kavua. Kavua is the criteria of kavua. All right, is it meant to be permanent or not? And pakak is the very opposite of kavua. I hear the problem that there is a part of the difficulty reading Rashi is the pronoun mix-up here, but
We also saw the Rabbi Zobin. He said
I didn't see Rabbi Zobin.
Like
Yeah.
so like,
Oh, you literally a wad of cloth that you stuff in. You see pictures of old. You hear stories about that in winter. You see stuff the windows with clothes, with shmatters, with rags to keep the wind out. Oh, yeah, okay. I didn't see the. Okay, we'll stop here for today. So on assuming that's correct, on Sunday we'll look again at Oil Arai. For those who didn't see, I probably should have put it on the WhatsApp group. Just so I have the luxury of the Gemara that has on the side the footnotes. But there's a marshal brings the Gesa in Rashi, in which he has a completely different Rashi to our Rashi, and he says that the pakak is a skylight, and that's Rashi's point. Yeah. But that's not our Gesa. That's not what our Rashi says. Okay, thank you very much to everyone for joining, as always.